I've been lucky enough to travel to over 100 countries as a photographer. In that time, I have made many mistakes, but I have learned many things as well. These mistakes can ruin your shots and they can ruin your trip, so it's important to know what they are. Today, I'm going to let you know about 10 potential mistakes you can make whilst travelling as a photographer. Let's get into it. Mistake number 1 is not researching the customs and culture of the location that you're going to. Some countries are really strict when it comes to shooting government buildings, military installations, and in particular military or police personnel. Now, I'll take an example here, Cuba. The people in Cuba are wonderfully open to having their photograph taken, and you're free to photograph pretty much everywhere. You won't be bothered unless you try and photograph a police officer, someone from the military, or a military installation or government building. Then you may well find yourself having a police or government officials coming down on you very quickly. So just be aware of the local laws and culture. Now, another thing that you need to be aware of is drone flying. Now, lots of photographers, myself included, love to fly a drone, but there are some countries which are quite open to flying drones and others that are very strict about it. Do your research before. If you don't adhere to local laws, you could end up with a fine or even having your drone confiscated. In, for example, the European Union and the UK, you need an operator's license. Now, you don't necessarily have to be from the country of origin, but you do need to apply for a license to operate in that country. Sometimes that's quite easy to do, other times it's quite difficult, but do research this before you actually go off on your travels. So the key thing here is to research the local rules, the local laws, the local customs. Go to the government websites, go to the local tourist information websites, and go to the local aviation websites and research the place that you're going. Otherwise, you could end up with a problem. Now, mistake 2 leads on from mistake 1, and that's to ignore cultural sensitivities. Temples, mosques, churches are incredibly beautiful places, and in most places that I've been around in the world, you're quite open to photograph outside and inside. Where the problem can come is if you're trying to photograph somebody at worship, somebody that's praying in a temple, in a mosque, then you really should back away from that. Whilst it might not be against the law in many countries, it's very much against the cultural sensitivities of a country to do that in many places, whether it's a church in the UK or a temple somewhere in Asia. Just don't do it without their permission. Some cultures are particularly camera shy. Now, I've mentioned Cuba. Cuba, the people there are incredibly open and will love to have their photograph taken in most cases. But there are some cultures, particularly in Asia, where photography is particularly frowned on. You really need to make sure that you have the person's permission before you take their image. Now, it's worth learning a little bit of the local language or using hand gestures to try and convey the fact that you would like to take their photo. If they engage with you, that's absolutely fine, take the photo. But if it's a no, just walk away and find somebody else. It's not worth upsetting a local person because you want to take their photo and they don't want it. Mistake number 3 is relying too much on your phone. Now, I love phones. I've used iPhones for years and years, both for photography and video, and they are fabulous tools for getting the shot. But they're not going to give you every shot that you want. If you're traveling on a trip of a lifetime, going a long way away, you will have set in your mind some specific shots, maybe long exposure shots, telephoto shots. Now, these are things that you will not be able to do with an iPhone or an Android phone. So use your iPhone, particularly in the middle of the day when the light's harsh and you're out being a tourist rather than a photographer, but also make sure you take along a decent lightweight mirrorless or DSLR camera to make sure that you don't miss those great shots that you're looking for. Mistake number 4 is overpacking or even underpacking your gear. Now, I've been guilty of both. There's been many times when I've taken so much equipment that they've made it impractical to move around easily. And then there's been other times when I've gone, I really wish I should have taken that lens or that tripod. Plan out your trip well in advance and think about the gear that you want to take with you. If you take too little, you may well be missing out on shots that you really wanted to take. If you take too much, you will find it hard to move between cities or hotels in different locations. Carrying all that gear on buses and trains can be really cumbersome. Another thing to be aware of is airlines. Now, most full-fat airlines, non-budget airlines as I like to call them, will have a weight restriction of 8 to 12 kilos and a decent carry-on bag limitation. Budget airlines can really restrict what you take with you, and indeed some of them will charge you just for carry-on. You need to be aware of those weight limits, and you need to make sure that all your essential camera gear is going with you on the plane. Don't put it in checked luggage. You need to make sure it's with you. Now, there are some non-essential items that you might want to put in your checked baggage. A tripod, for example, which I know that I can replace if it does go missing, but is also going to be very heavy and take my weight limit over if I take it as carry-on. So that I always put that in checked luggage. And there are certain other non-essentials that I'll put in checked luggage, but all the essential gear has to come with you. Now, for me, the ideal setup is a single versatile zoom. For example, the one I'm using at the moment on this Sony is the 24-105, and a nice fast prime. On my last Asia trip, I took this 24-105 and I took an 85 f1.8, and I didn't ever feel that I was missing out on any shots. You might differ, you might have different ideas of shots that you want to get, but try to limit what you actually take rather than taking far too much. Now, mistake number 5 is not backing up your photos as you go. Now, I do this all the time for the pure fact that there are several things that could happen. The first is you could have a memory card failure and lose those images. Secondly, you could have your gear stolen. You could just simply lose your gear. You could lose a camera, leave it somewhere and come back and find it's gone. Now, you can back up in several ways. My personal backup strategy is to back up to 2 fairly cheap 4TB hard drives, and then I carry a 1TB SSD, which allows me to work on videos and images as I travel, because I need a fast drive to do that. But depending on where I'm going, most of the places I go to have great internet. I will also have a backup service like Dropbox or Backblaze, which will automatically upload my images to the cloud overnight whilst I'm sleeping. Just leave the laptop or the tablet on and back up overnight. Now, if you don't want to take a laptop, if your camera has 2 card slots, use one of those slots for your day-to-day shooting and the other for backup. Every time that backup card is full up, store it away, perhaps in the safe with your passport and valuables, and keep a good eye on it. Mistake number 6 is sticking to the tourist locations. Now, we're all guilty of that because those are the iconic places that we want to shoot. But very often they're so crowded and so well covered that you end up with just the regular cliched shots of that location. The real travel images come from the little back streets around those locations, the little shops, the culture, the cafes, the people in those locations around the tourist spots are where you will get some of your very best travel images. That's not to say that you shouldn't shoot those cliche shots, but try to think outside of the box. Rather than shooting that cliche as everyone else does, look for framing elements, look for ways of getting that shot without resorting to the cliche. A recent project I did a couple of years ago was called Glimpses of London, where I tried to photograph all the iconic locations of London without actually them being the main subject of the photograph. So I would use other subjects to lead the eye to that iconic location. That's a great way of shooting travel photos. You will know what the location is, but that main subject is not the iconic one. Now, talk to locals and talk to the staff in your hotel and ask them for great places to go that are off the beaten track in that location. Use Google Maps and Google Street View to get down into that location and look around and see where the photography really lies to avoid the cliches. Mistake number 7, and it's quite an obvious one, is shooting at the wrong time of day. If you're on a photography travel trip, it might also be your annual holiday and you don't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning or stay out to 10 o'clock at night. So you might find yourself just wandering the streets in the middle of the day, and you'll get really harsh, unflattering images of the locations. There's likely to be big crowds in those locations. You're on holiday, but that doesn't mean you can't get up really early, do some beautiful shots just in the pre-dawn and dawn light, then go and have a cup of coffee, have a little rest at your hotel, and then go out and enjoy the day as a tourist. And then again in the evening, no reason why you can't go back out, shoot a beautiful sunset, shoot the blue hour, the lights of the city coming on, and then go for a beer. By shooting the best times of day, the blue hour, the golden hour, that beautiful beginning and end of day light, you will be getting the best shots you can out of your travel location. You will have plenty of time in the day to rest, relax, and be a tourist. Now, mistake number 8 is not being aware of local scams. Everywhere you go, you can be open to scams. I've been traveling for the best part of 40 years and I still got caught by a scam that I wasn't aware of in Bangkok last year. Now, some scams are very region specific and some are not. A region specific one is in Eastern Europe, and this is very photographic related. There are thieves that are very aware of the cameras that you're using and the value in particular of the lenses. You're walking around with several $1,000s or pounds worth of gear around your neck or in your backpack. They know it, and they will know the difference between a Sony lens, a Nikon lens and a Canon lens, and that they turn in different ways on the bayonet mount, and they will whip those lenses off your camera without you even noticing it. I've seen this happen in Russia, and I'm aware of it happening in other Eastern European countries, and I've known people that have walked a mile without even noticing that their lens has gone. Another classic scam, and photographers particularly can fall to this one, is the bird crap on your backpack scam. And this is simply, what will happen is you'll be stopped in the street by someone and they will point out that a bird has crapped on your bag and they will help you to get it off. Now, in the background, somebody will be sneaking around and either going through your pockets, taking your camera, or trying to get into your bag while you're not paying attention. I had this happen to me in Buenos Aires with my wife, but I was aware of this particular scam and we walked into the nearest local shop, which oddly happened to be a photographic shop, and they knew what was happening and they immediately called the police. That was in Buenos Aires. It's quite common in other South American cities, but it happens all over the world. So research local scams, research and be aware of potential things that can happen to you, but don't let them rule your holiday. Just keep them in the back of your mind. If something doesn't seem quite right, just walk away, but don't let it rule your holiday or your trip. Just be aware of it. Now, mistake number 9 is one that is relevant to photographers and tourists alike. And that is not learning a few local phrases. Now, it can be as simple as please and thank you in the local language. That will open doors, open people up to you and make your life much easier. But if you can go beyond that, you will find finding photographic spots, being able to photograph local people much easier. You only have to spend a few hours a day in the few weeks before you go with an app like Duolingo just to learn a few local phrases and be able to communicate with the local people. You will find it opens up so many avenues, just them understanding what you're looking for. If you do take photos of local people, they're willing to have their pictures taken, offer to send them the pictures. It just gives a warm feeling to everyone. And don't forget to do it. Either send it by email or send it to their social media accounts. Just send them the pictures. They will really appreciate it and it will make them more open to having their photographs taken in the future. Mistake number 10 is not organising your images when you get home. You've been on a long trip, you're tired, you get back, you load the images to your computer and you just forget about them. Make some time. Get yourself a nice cup of coffee and a beer, go through on Lightroom or whatever image management software you use and rate those images. If you rate them first of all, you've already cut them down into the ones that are worth editing. Then at your own time, edit those photos, publish them on social media, get them printed, put them into albums, have photo books made. One thing that I've done here in my home is I've got a little wall of travel photos. I've had not huge images, but they're printed, they're framed, and they're on just one wall that represents some of the travel that I've actually done. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at some of the mistakes that I've made whilst traveling over 40 years and over 100 countries. I'm sure that you have made mistakes, and if you've made any absolute clangers, I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Don't be shy, we've all done them. And if you've enjoyed this video, a like would be fantastic, a sub would be even better, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next one.